And I'm Keon.
And this is Inevitable, that podcast where we put the capability to wipe out all life on Earth onto one ship because this week we watched Destruction.
Written by Dennis Spooner.
Directed by Ken Turner.
And aired on December 2nd, 1970. Very generically named episode.
I mean, there were quite a few generically named episodes of UFO / UFO / whatever the hell this TV show is called. I mean, we've had Conflict, we've had Exposed, now we've got Destruction. Coming up, we've got Survival and Ordeal.
Oh, well, that's another Doctor Who crossover title. We have Survival. We have Time Lash.
Time Lash is the weird one, though, because Time Lash is, like, not an actual word, you know?
Yeah, this was also first. You know, it's kind of hard to, not hard, but it's like, you go, oh, wow, they used a Doctor Who title, but it's actually the other way around, right? Time Lash on Doctor Who came in the 80s, I believe. Yeah,
it was a Sixth Doctor story with the Borad. That's because it was just Caves of Androzani, but, like, with Paul Darrow.
And it had the
and the Borad.
What was it? The Bandrels. Remember the Bandrels?
and H.G. Wells somehow. Don't forget that.
Mm-hmm. Who wrote that story anyway? Never mind. Don't tell me. I don't want to know.
Really? You don't want to know? Are you sure?
I want to say it was like Pip and Jane Baker, but whatever. This isn't a Doctor Who.
Pip and Jane Baker. Oh, never mind. Ooh, wasn't Pip and Jane Baker. Our Doctor Who fan cards are revoked.
Yeah, I guess I'll spend the rest of my life trying to live this one down.
It was actually Glenn McCoy.
That was my second guess.
You could be forgiven for getting that wrong because that was the only serial he wrote for Doctor Who, so... Ooh.
Well, anyway, the writer of this episode also has some Doctor Who connections. Dennis Spooner, he did some stuff for Doctor Who. I don't even particularly know what.
He was a script editor, like, for the first Doctor's era for a while there.
Huh.
For about 6 months. He also wrote half of Dalek's Master Plan and The Rescue, if I remember correctly. And Power of the Daleks, I think.
If you're just remembering this off the top of your head.
I'm remembering from reading it this morning.
Oh.
Am I remembering it? Yes. Am I remembering it from Trust Your Doctor? No.
Anyway, for all your Doctor Who needs, check out Trust Your Doctor, Doctor Who podcast. You don't even have to watch the show. It's just all your needs right there.
Yeah, just listen to Trust Your Doctor.
I realized, we talked about this right before we started recording, but I realized the little summary that I read of this episode last week to foreshadow the episode was kind of a spoiler.
To foreshadow?
Yeah, exactly. Well, so here, let me just read it again as a little refresher. Wikipedia has this one-sentence summary for all the episodes, and for this one, it was: the aliens attack a Royal Navy destroyer that is dumping sealed containers of highly toxic nerve gas in the sea. Now, that doesn't really seem all that spoilerish until you watch the episode and realize that the whole nerve gas angle only comes into play in, like, the last maybe 15 minutes, and it's really played up as, like, you want to know the truth behind this all? We've been dumping nerve gas into the sea.
It's also, like, about 2/3 of the way through the episode.
Mm-hmm.
They've, like, fully set up a lot of exposition before they get to this point. And, it's Straker going to the Navy and being like, I gotta know what's going on or else the UFOs are gonna win. And that's when they're like, yeah, we could just wipe out the human race right now. And we just didn't tell anybody. We put it all on a ship and sailed it out into the ocean.
And plus, there's a lot of dialogue leading up to this point that is cryptic and sort of, just playing up the moment of reveal. So good on Wikipedia for just blatantly putting this sort of a spoiler. here is their summary. Now, again, like we discussed either last week or a week or two ago, these summaries feel like they came from something else, like they came from like a TV guide or like a Radio Times or something like that. But I don't know.
I spent like 3 seconds trying to see if there was a citation on Wikipedia, and there wasn't. So I went, oh well. They could be from anywhere. They could just be made up by some random wiki user.
Right. This episode, other than the whole nerve gas thing, maybe they put that in there because like everything else in the episode was kind of just generic. Not generic, but it just wasn't all that interesting. It was an okay episode, but it was pretty much just that, okay.
Yeah, this episode is very mediocre in my opinion. It didn't really hold my attention, you know?
It did, like, once they introduced the nerve gas thing, well, two things happened. One, I remembered the Wikipedia summary and went like, wow. They spoil it, kind of just the discussion we just had. But also, yeah, I got a lot more invested in the story.
That was the most interesting part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, especially since before that, it was like, is this alien hypnosis again? Is this alien hypnosis? Are we doing that again? Which kind of, but not really.
Well, I guess the one interesting angle is like you're kind of wondering throughout the whole thing, like, who's working with the aliens and who's, or like, are they working with the aliens type thing? And you don't really know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, right.
As it turns out, the answer is
exactly.
no. Basically, I mean, what's her face is, what was her name? Sarah.
Sarah.
Yeah, she was. I wonder why they didn't use mind control on her, to be honest. Like, they have mind control, like, might as well just go for it.
I guess because this was easier, I don't know.
Actually, there was something else that I thought was fairly interesting from this episode, and that was that, like, it further complicates what the aliens are even trying to achieve. Now, this has just been par for the course for UFO, where they kind of speculate. They introduce what the aliens might be trying to do, which is, like, use human organs to revive their species, and then they just, everything after that just calls that hypothesis into extreme question, including this episode where the UFO just seems intent on killing all humans.
Yeah, I was like, before we've established that the aliens are coming here to steal human organs, to steal human parts, so to speak, you might say. But in this episode, the aliens, I guess, are just like, you know what? It hasn't been working. Screw this. Burn it to the ground.
Well, they even called that into question a little bit earlier, where I forget which episode it was in, but the doctor guy was like, what if the aliens, he's like, what if they're using our bodies, right? What if they're implanting their minds in human bodies, which isn't too far removed from the organs thing.
Mm-hmm.
But this is just completely different. Maybe they'll reveal that there's like different factions amongst the aliens or something. Probably not, but you can always hope.
One can hope, I suppose. One can dream.
Yeah, 8 years of watching these shows, and we still have hope. Which isn't to say that like, you know, the sort of our wheelhouse of like classic British sci-fi is bad. It's just like all these shows like that from the era that UFO is from, they kind of just fly against expectation. You know, they'll set up these things and you go like, wait, maybe they're setting up this, that, or the other, but they're not. They're just usually not, for better or worse.
Yeah, I mean, look. Somehow we still keep coming back and being like, yeah, you know, they're gonna do it this time. This is the time. This time, For this time for sure. And then it's never this time for sure.
So how does the episode open? The episode opens on the ship, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they shoot down a UFO. This Royal Navy destroyer, completely untrained in the art of shooting down UFOs, takes down a UFO.
They do it unprovoked, too. This becomes sort of a point of contention later in the episode, where the UFO doesn't seem to have attacked, but they order it shot down anyway.
Yeah, these Navy destroyers see an alien spaceship and they see it and they're like, shoot that shit down.
Yeah. What happens when they this is like the what is it, the rhyme of the ancient mariner waiting to happen. It's like, you come across an albatross, these guys better be prepared.
They actually, though, surprisingly successfully shoot it down. They successfully land a missile on this UFO and bring it down, and luckily for SHADO, the UFO sinks in like the one trench anywhere nearby, I suppose. Although I guess the ship was there specifically because the trench was there. But anyway, the UFO is like unrecoverable by the Navy. Although Straker really wants to get the UFO back because Colonel Henderson busts in and is surprisingly amenable to everything going on for once. But he questions, if they knew that the UFO was there, and Straker's like, no, we never got any sightings.
Yeah, this is I found this to be pretty funny, where it's like the Navy contends with this UFO, they shoot it down successfully, which is like more than SHADO seems to be able to do, like, ever. and Straker even says, like, well, looks like one got past our screens, just saying it before anyone else can, just to avoid responsibility. And yeah, the events of this episode probably wouldn't have happened if SHADO was competent, but they're not, so they did.
Yeah, everything SHADO does in this episode is like just compounds their own incompetence. If we're still doing, SHADO's questionable order of the week, there are a couple.
One is coming up. Straker takes Foster golfing.
Golfing? And Foster's pretty bad.
Yeah, I
pretty bad at golfing.
I really liked this scene because one, it's like a walk and talk type scene, kind of, which are always good, I guess. But throughout the scene, it just continually demonstrates like how bad Foster is at golf, and at the end, Straker, like, he does his one shot, and it's like, it's really bad. It's worse than Foster.
Yeah, but surprisingly, when Straker gives Foster swing advice for getting out of the bunker, Foster takes it and hits a good shot.
Yeah, which actually, it just goes to show you, Straker is more of like a theory guy, right? He's not all that good in
He's not hands-on.
No, he's not hands-on, and like, he's not a practical guy. And I think the episodes that we've seen so far have been in line with that, actually. It's like, SHADO's not very competent. Like, they are in theory, but not in practice.
Yeah, Colonel Lake's just sitting there like, damn, that light speed tracker that I invented in the first episode, just completely failing to catch these UFOs.
Mm-hmm. And Straker, I mean, obviously, one of his main character traits, I think, is just coming out with the most wild theories that have no basis in reality.
Yeah, anyway, this week he has the wild theory, excuse me, that the UFOs have somehow defeated their tracking system, which turns out to be true, actually. But at the outset is a pretty insane theory.
Yeah, he doesn't really have any basis for thinking this at the beginning of the episode, other than to deflect from his own incompetence. So anyway, the thing that he wants Foster to do is to go spy on... I already forgot her name again. Sarah, oh God, how do you pronounce this last name? Bosanquet.
Yeah, Bosanquet.
Bosanquet.
Yeah, something like that.
She's already been introduced at this point in the episode, but I don't remember the scene in which she was introduced. I just remember that she already had been.
She's introduced in that... she's introduced... I think she's just introduced as the Admiral's assistant, because we have a scene where the Admiral... So there's kind of like a parallel scene here where Virginia Lake is in Skydiver trying to get down to the UFO and basically going below Skydiver's safe depth. I guess they rebuilt Skydiver 1. But she's trying to get down there, and the Admiral is approving some top secret mission that you as the audience don't know what it is, and the way this is all kind of shot implies that he's approving a mission to go hunt down the UFO, although later on you find out that's not actually true. He's actually approving the almost destroy Earth plan.
Yeah, he's approving the what could possibly go wrong dumping this toxic waste into the ocean plan, so... Yeah, that's the scene where she was introduced.
She's introduced in that scene. Yeah, as his assistant. And then we get a scene where Straker's talking with Foster, and he's like, hey, how well do you know the Admiral? And he's like, I think that was actually during the golf scene. But Straker kind of implies that Foster needs to start applying some pressure here. That Foster's going undercover. Once again, what the hell is Foster's job in SHADO?
Just to do whatever the episode calls for, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
He actually is, I think, featured to the detriment of the other characters being featured. I don't know. It's just like, when's the last time we saw that doctor guy? And obviously he wouldn't be the one going undercover, but still, he's a member of the team, isn't he? When's the last time we saw any of the other characters who were introduced in Exposed? They introduced an entire team in Exposed, and we haven't seen hide or hair of them in 7 episodes.
Well, interestingly, this episode provides an explanation for that because it introduces the SHADO amnesia shot. So I guess SHADO just has the ability to erase people's minds.
Yeah, they can just Men in Black people. That must have been what Straker was implying he'd do to Foster in Exposed, except he was just wording it in such a way that he... and in Kill Straker, for that matter, except he was just wording it in such a way that heavily indicated that he was going to have Foster killed instead of just Men in Blacked.
Yeah, it reminds me of the amnesia drug in Torchwood.
Yeah, the, God, what was it called? It had a name.
I don't know. But Gwen finds out that she got amnesia'd. That's a whole thing, if I'm remembering correctly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, God, just the memories of Gwen and that entire team are just flashing through my mind. They were really just awful people.
Yeah, they were. The whole team.
Especially frickin' Owen.
Yeah, well,
remember?
Owen got the worst death too, so I mean, I suppose...
I know.
I don't know what I suppose. He had it coming, I don't know.
Remember how they made Owen like 25, even though he was like a full-fledged doctor?
Yeah, casually just making him a bit of a savant, but never really elaborating on that. And then not really ever actually using his, like, doctorial skills until, like, deep into the first season.
But that's classic Doctor Who for you, you know? They'll just introduce, like, oh yeah, Mel Bush, she's a programmer. Never has anything to do with anything.
Oh yeah, Perry, she's a botanist.
Yeah, not even in Terror of the Vermouths. Okay, whatever. This isn't a Doctor Who podcast. It's a UFO podcast.
We mention that consistently. We consistently, when we talk about Perry, mention that she was a botanist, but not in Terror of the Vervoids.
Yeah, because it was that again. It was one of those disappointing things. You're like, they have to do something with this. Like, this time has to be the one time, but it never is.
So anyway, Paul Foster decides to investigate, I don't know, apply pressure by starting a romantic relationship with Sarah.
Yeah. We talked about this earlier, how Michael Billington was in talks, kind of like Patrick Magoo, actually, to play James Bond. And yeah, this seems James Bond-ish, right?
Yeah, it does. Also, Michael Billington wasn't just in talks for James Bond. He, out of every male actor ever to screen test for James Bond, he screen tested more than anybody else who didn't get the role. So...
Mm-hmm. Wasn't he... I was reading a little bit about this, mostly just skimming and kind of not paying attention, but wasn't it just like... He wasn't actually turned down, right? It was more just like a circumstance that he didn't ever play Bond?
Yeah, pretty much. Hilariously, he did, though, play another British spy who gets killed in the opening of From Russia with Love, I think it was.
Oh, damn. Well, that sucks. Anyway, we in this scene, we get it set up that Sarah has a bit of an affinity for astronomy.
Yeah, she's got a telescope which I'm going to forget to mention later, so I'm going to mention it now. When Straker sees later, Straker decides, again, this is just underscoring Straker's insane theories in a way. He doesn't call it a telescope, he calls it like a UFO spotting device or something like that. I'm just like, telescope, Straker?
What happens next? We get some more info about the bottomless trench. That's what I have in my notes.
Yeah, Straker goes to talk to the Admiral. And Henderson is going to take him and introduce him as the head of aviation. That's how they say it in the episode, okay?
I know.
And I guess the Admiral hasn't heard of Harlington Straker Studios, but whatever. And they're kind of like dancing around the fact that UFOs exist, and Straker's like, it could have been a commercial airliner you shot down. He wasn't attacking you. And I'm like, well, I feel like if it was a commercial airliner, we would know by now.
Yeah, just goes to show you, Straker he just pulls these things out of nowhere. He just, there's no basis for this, easily disproven. But he's just lying through his teeth. He's just going for it. Not lying, but like, you know what I mean.
Right.
Henderson is also now I like this, right? Because it's sort of a enemies / rivals to allies type thing, where it's like Henderson is now on Straker's side, and they're all buddy. I like that. I just wish the guy who's playing Henderson would articulate like at all.
Henderson is actually quite nice this whole story, because he doesn't blame Straker for failure, for the UFO getting past his defenses, doesn't really blame Straker for anything that happens in this episode. A stark contrast to his two previous appearances in Kill Straker and Conflict.
Yeah, and you know, sort of, I like that about this episode.
Yeah. I appreciated that this episode built upon the relationship between Henderson and Shadow.
Yes. I
guess that's how I want to say it.
Now, I think they kind of indicate here that, like, they bring up the trench. They don't tell us what, like, they're doing with it yet, obviously, but I think this, like, plants the seed in Straker's head, which is, I guess, always probably a recipe for disaster, is planting seeds in Straker's head. But I think this kind of plants a seed of, like, they shot down this UFO. There's a trench right here. The UFO is probably at the bottom of the trench.
Yeah, and the trench is too deep for anybody to get to, so they can't verify this theory in any way.
And Virginia Lake and the rest of Skydiver also seem to have this idea. Now, this was going on a little bit earlier, but also kind of simultaneous to this scene, where we mentioned it already, but might as well just reiterate, like, Skydiver is attempting to, like, investigate the matter / go down there themselves. They can't, because it's below their like maximum depth or whatever, but yeah.
Yeah, so I think that UFO is forever not to be found.
This was kind of weird, though, I guess. You know, it's just like the order of the episodes that we're watching them in. It places very similar episodes close to one another. You know, like ESP and Kill Straker were both, like, heavily about mind control. Subsmash and Destruction are both heavily about, like, underwater endeavors. You know, they're sort of both maritime episodes.
Maritime. Yeah, maybe UFO's doing some sort of, like, running duology kind of thing where every 2 episodes are a nice little pair.
Maybe.
Which would be a pretty weird way to do this, but
maybe. Doubtful, but maybe.
It's in reality, it's probably just they released this in whatever order they finished editing them. But, you know, that's a good question. How did they decide what order to release these in? And I don't know. I mean, I don't think we've actually looked it up in this podcast yet. I don't think I don't think people even necessarily know. Like, I don't know if that information is even out there.
No, I'll try and do a little Googling, I guess, and see if I can drop it in the show notes. Or if anyone knows, reach out to us and explain it. Because, like, yeah, how did they decide?
This is a post-production break episode, we should mention, because Colonel Virginia Lake is in this episode.
Right. Again, her role is completely interchangeable with Alex. There's basically...
In fact, this would have been very interesting with Freeman after Subsmash. You know, Freeman rescuing Straker from Skydiver in the previous episode, and then Freeman going to Skydiver in this episode. And being in Skydiver for the majority of this episode would have been a very interesting parallel, but, you know.
Alas.
Alas.
Well, so, okay, simultaneous to all this happening, and actually throughout the episode, the character's eyeliner just looks terrible. It's just the worst you've ever seen. It's super noticeable.
Whose eyeliner are we talking
everyone's.
about?
Everyone in the episode.
Oh,
like,
okay.
it was super noticeable. It looked like it was drawn on, like, by a blindfolded 3-year-old being forced to use their non-dominant hand. Sorry to say. What is the non-dominant hand? Is it like the recessive hand, or, you know?
Yeah, the recessive hand, I guess.
I don't think it's a recessive hand.
Non-dominant hand. No, okay, I googled non-dominant hand, and everybody uses the phrase non-dominant.
You know, that's because you googled non-dominant.
There's an article here that's titled "When Non-Dominant is Better Than Dominant." Oh, it's taking forever to load. It was probably one of these fancy new wave JavaScript sites that loads 6 million megabytes to load the website.
Apparently it is called the non-dominant hand, according to Wikipedia. Yeah, it's the dominant and the non-dominant.
Yeah, on the page handedness. That's a hard word to pronounce. Say that 5 times fast. Handedness.
Well, okay, so...
Mixed-handedness or cross-dominance is the change of hand preference between tasks. Anyway, yes. Now that we've gotten the eyeliner out of the way...
Yeah, what's actually happening at this point in the episode is that Straker, and I think Virginia Lake accompanies him. They sneak back into... Not back into, because they were never there in the first place, but they sneak into Sarah's apartment. After receiving word, I guess, from Foster that something suspicious is going on.
Well, yeah, because they... Straker puts 3 and 3 together here. I don't know why that's what I went for, but anyway. Because he's got a picture, and he's like, Foster, does Sarah have any this pictures of this guy in her apartment? He's like, yeah. And the next time that he meets with Foster, he's like, Foster, I'm going to need you to give us the key to Sarah's apartment. I guess the relationship progressed to the point where Foster has a key to her apartment. And Foster's like, why? And Straker explains that the man whose picture he showed to Foster before is actually Sarah's father, who helped design Moonbase.
Right. I forgot about this entire aspect.
And went missing off the moon. Well, he went missing, presumed dead off the moon. But Straker has this insane theory that the aliens have actually captured him, and they're using him to, like, convince Sarah to help them. And they need to break into her apartment to find evidence of this theory.
Right. Wasn't it kind of implied that Foster and Sarah knew each other already? Or am I just making that up? Like, before the episode started?
No, it is. No, I think that's true.
At this point, I was sure they were going to break out the mind control, but it's actually not. Yeah, they're pretty much just manipulating Sarah into doing their bidding.
Well, yeah, they make it kind of... They heavily imply the... they heavily imply the mind control, because while Straker and Lake are watching Sarah, she just... there's a loud tone that's played for the audience, and she just drops a vase and then starts walking around her apartment like she's being controlled by something.
Yeah, it turns out all she's being controlled by is, I don't know, her attachment to her family or something like this. Something, okay, I don't know. I'm not going to go for the joke that I was about to go for, so whatever. We'll just bypass that.
Meanwhile, I don't know, Straker again jumping to conclusions, quicker than should be possible. When they're in Sarah's apartment, he sees some numbers written down on the side of the telescope that he has Virginia Lake write down, which he then communicates to Moonbase and has them post an interceptor right on that line. Because Straker immediately assumes that a UFO must be coming in here. And so Sarah now like looks through the telescope, and the guy in the interceptor gets blasted with radiation, I guess.
Yeah. So it was actually like a communication device, or like a not a communication device, but like a not a what, I don't even know what you'd call it. Just sort of a yeah, I don't know what you'd call it. Oh, just a weapon? I don't know. I just don't know.
Straker kind of, when he explains this later on, describes it as like a high-powered laser beam, basically. That's being used to signal the aliens.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't sure. Was like, where was this attack coming from? Was it from the telescope itself? Was it from the aliens? Like what? So I mean, it doesn't really matter, I guess, but
Shrug.
So they go and confront the Admiral about all of this, and they find out what he's been doing, cryptically, behind the scenes, which is dumping toxic nerve gas into the trench. This explains the UFO attacks. Like we mentioned before, the UFOs have decided that they're going to destroy Earth by attacking the capsules that the gas is stored in to release them.
Yep. Because when they confront this admiral, he explains that he's the head of a committee, I guess, of people, of organizations dedicated to destroy weapons, essentially. And right now they're destroying a nerve gas that was developed that is apparently indestructible.
This is like a pretty obvious, like not allegory, but it's a pretty obvious like one-to-one thing with like nuclear material stuff like this, which is often like just dumped in the ocean, especially. Except here they're like, yeah, this nerve gas is stored in capsules that take over 1,000 years to deteriorate, which is like, versus real life, it's just like, yeah, it's leaking nuclear storage devices, whatever, yeah, just dump them overboard.
He says that they're in specially manufactured capsules that'll slowly break down and it'll slowly release the gas in concentrations that are not harmful to life, I guess. But that if the alien were to blow up the ship,
it would just end all life on Earth.
It would kill everyone. Yeah, it would just end life on Earth. And so Foster and Straker kind of like are watching this operation, trying to make sure no UFOs come in. And Foster says like, so what are we gonna do? And Straker says, well, if this is successful, he'll get the usual amnesia shots, and if it's not, well, it won't really matter anyway, will it?
The guy who played the Admiral did like a pretty admirable job of like delivering that the explanation, because like the way he kind of the way he says it all is like, you don't believe that like the material is actually like going to be released in safe quantities, that the devices are going to work exactly as they're described and deteriorate over the course of 1,000 years. You're just like, yeah, there's no way. You guys are knowingly dumping like this toxic stuff into the ocean.
Yeah, well,
I know the episode doesn't really dwell on like criticizing this or anything. Not that it should. It just kind of continues on. There's not too much left either, so they pretty much just wrap it up here. Another UFO attacks, and Sky One intervenes. The guy, I forget how he breaks out of like.
Well, so two two UFOs attack.
Yeah.
Well, first, before we launch Sky One, there's two UFOs that attack in space, and they confirm that they have actually found a way around SHADO's detection system because the interceptor can see them, but they're not reading them at Moonbase. And the other two interceptors are too far away to get to Interceptor 1 in time to help them destroy the UFOs. So the Interceptor is able to destroy one UFO, but the other one escapes into the atmosphere, and that's why Sky One even needs to launch at all.
Yeah, that. But the guy, he breaks out of the UFO like control signal or whatever it is, and yeah, basically just saves the day. That's pretty much it.
Well, the ship is currently attacking the UFO that's coming towards them, trying to blow it up. Not successfully. But luckily for them, Sky One is on the case. They see Sky One come out of the ocean and they're like, what the hell is that? Mm-hmm. And Sky One destroys the UFO before it blows up the ship. They successfully dump all of this nerve gas into the ocean.
It was kind of a tense scene, I'll give them that, where it's like the operation to dump the gas doesn't stop because of the attack. You know, it stops for nothing, apparently. Like, yeah, they're just getting shot at where one like stray shot could just end all life on Earth as anyone has ever known it. Yeah, just keep the job going. Who cares, right?
I know they're being remarkably cavalier with this this nerve gas that could end life on Earth as we know it.
It all works out in the end, though, except for Straker's insane theories. They're still out there, still at it. I think it's him and Henderson at the end. He's back in his office at some time later. I forget if it was I don't remember who it was, but the person he's talking to walks in. Yeah, it just goes to show you how interchangeable they all are, I guess. It's just like all the characters are just someone for Straker to talk to, except Foster. Foster's the guy for Straker to tell things. Foster's the guy who Straker tells to do things. Everyone else is just the person Straker talks to. But whoever this is, I want to say it was Henderson, just walks in. He's like, well, guess that's that all, wrapped up or whatever. Straker's like, I want to know.
I think it was Henderson.
I want to know how many more, He says it in a cleverer and snappier way than I'm describing, but he's like, I want to know how many more people like Sarah there are who are secretly working for the aliens.
Henderson kind of just shrugs because, like, why is Henderson going to know the answer to this?
That's the bomb on which the episode ends.
Yep. I don't have anything to say except yep.
How many people do you think are out there like Sarah? Dozens?
Millions.
Hundreds? Millions? Billions? It's more than half the population of the Earth.
Yeah, 3.7 billion.
What if Straker himself, I mean, we know we had this theory already, but it's like, what if Straker himself is working for the aliens and doesn't know it?
Yeah, this meme of a theory. Yeah, I mean, maybe.
It's actually less insane than some of the theories Straker's come up with. Well, kind of. But yeah, I don't know. Overall, I guess just as an assessment of this episode, mediocre overall, I think.
Yeah, entertaining enough, I think. Maybe it doesn't necessarily need to be any more entertaining than it was, but I enjoyed it for what it was. When the actual nerve gas plotline started up, I was like, okay, I'm enjoying this. and it kept my interest. But like getting to that point, there was just a lot of, I don't want to say a lot of things that I didn't care. Yeah, I was gonna say I don't want to say like a lot of things I didn't care about, but a lot of meandering, I think, is the word. Which things can meander, but I can still care. You know, because what's also, I suppose, interesting is that I originally actually thought that the plot of this episode was not going to be... I completely forgot going into this episode that you had read that little snippet about the nerve gas and dumping it in the ocean. And what I actually thought the episode was going to be about, and this could have been very interesting if this was what the episode was about, was like racing. You know, is the Navy going to find the UFO first, or is SHADO going to be able to find the UFO? Like I imagined this episode was going to be SHADO racing to cover up the UFO before the Navy finds out that it's actually a UFO.
Right.
You know, and it's in this deep trench, and it was going to be like, who's going to be able to get to the bottom of the trench first?
Right. The Navy has their submarines. SHADO has its submarine, Skydiver, I mean. Yeah. God, that's confusing. So yeah, I can definitely see that. You know, just have some good old fashioned submarine drama or something like this, kind of like Ice Station Zebra or something. Not that that movie is about a race, it kind of is.
But that's not where the episode ended up going, and it becomes pretty obvious pretty quickly that that's not where the episode's going. And then so in a way you're kind of left wondering like, well, where is this episode going?
I know, and I think
and then by the time you actually get there, you're like, okay, well, I'm just checked out.
Yeah, well, this episode alongside episodes like Question of Priorities, like, they just go heavily into like this thing that's kind of unavoidable given the premise of UFO, but it's like there's a lot of bureaucracy. Like the show is very concerned with showing you some of the minutia of it. In fact, like just bureaucratic processes, and sometimes rather dull discussions between I don't know, just professionals. And that just goes hand in hand with what I was saying like last week or a few weeks ago, where it's like UFO kind of just feels like, you know, what if they made a Transformers show about like some sort of council or committee dealing with the after effects of the Transformers, like large scale battles.
This episode was kind of what we were talking about the other week about the Transformers show, where it's just about people living in a world where Transformers blow up the city every week. Like the Royal Navy here is just living in a world where UFOs come down and blow stuff up, you know?
Yeah, except nobody knows it. The UFO universe is like kind of absurd in that way. It's like, just think of like, yeah, some of them are conspiracies, but some of them are obviously not true. But like, there's in real life, there's like hints of truth or hints of valid mystery to UFO stories. You know what I mean? Versus like UFO, it's like UFOs are literally attacking Earth violently, and nobody seems to know they exist.
I know Earth is under constant attack, but most regular people just don't even know about it.
Yeah, meanwhile, real life, well, maybe we're under constant attack, who knows, but apparently not. So versus like real life, where it's like, you know, there's people out there who go crazy over UFOs type thing. No, I don't want to say that UFOs don't, you know, exist IRL, but I don't know. It's painted...
Interesting, Keon making an assertion that UFOs may or may not exist in real life.
Well, it's painted as a conspiracy theory, but, like, I don't know, there seems to be some pretty solid evidence, which actually just goes hand in hand with the conspiracy aspect, right? It's like, I don't know. People want you to believe that it's a conspiracy, but it's really not. It's really just rather obvious or something like this.
Yeah, but like all good conspiracies, once they get proven to be false, you just move the goalposts and make the conspiracy even more complex.
Yeah, if only that storming of Area 51 succeeded back in 2019.
Didn't they just instead make like a Woodstock-esque impromptu music festival?
I don't know. All I have to say is that when the world needed most, Naruto running guy vanished. Anyway, yeah, I think you're actually right. Is like, even if it wasn't an underwater race, I think looking back, this episode could have done well to include more naval battle-esque things. I felt that it was rather underused, just in hindsight, where it's like, yeah, they're on this ship, they're attacking the UFO, which is attacking, but really, what's the difference between that? What's the difference between like the UFO attacking like the army or like a military installation on land versus attacking them on the water? They weren't really using the naval and aqueous environment to their advantage to create an interesting scene. It was literally just like an attacker from the sky and whatever, ground to surface, not ammunitions, but ground to surface firepower being used against
munitions.
Sorry, not ground to surface, ground to air. Yeah, munitions being used against it. So, whatever.
Yeah. And I think I've actually, on that note, exhausted what I want to say about this episode, and I don't want to keep beating the dead horse, so to speak. So perhaps we should talk about some of the people in this episode.
Yeah. Did IMDb get a new fave icon thing? I kind of think they did. Looks a lot worse.
I don't know.
I don't know either. Sorry for that interruption.
Interesting you pronounced it that way, because I always pronounced it favicon in my head. Okay, anyway, favicons aside, Edwin Richfield, he plays Admiral Sheringham. He's got 155 acting credits. He died in 1990, actually quite young at 68. He had 2 roles in Doctor Who, Twin Dilemma as Mestor and Sea Devils as Captain Hart. Let's see, what else here? The Bellcrest Story, Trial, UFO, obviously. Hadley, Z-Cars, The Avengers. He had quite a few roles on The Avengers. Looked like he was a recurring guest actor, not the same role multiple times. He was in Quatermass and the Pit, a TV movie called The Secret Agent, presumably no relation. Although he was in the TV show Secret Agent, 1966.
Was he in The Prisoner? Because if you were in Secret Agent, you were probably in The Prisoner.
Don't see The Prisoner here, 69, 70. No, it doesn't look like it. The Odd Man, Hancock, a TV show. Twice, actually, looks like. A lot of really obscure stuff. Interpol calling, Dial 999, The Vice, uncredited role in the 59 Ben-Hur movie. Quatermass 2. Peterson. Oh, jeez. He goes all the way back to 49 here. Undercover Agent. Yeah, okay, that's about everything I've recognized.
Well, I looked up Stephanie Beacham, who played Sarah. She has a surprisingly extensive career, and surprisingly enough, she's still acting. She played... Looks like she had a pretty early prominent role, or earlier in her career. She played Mary Queen of Scots in something called The Queen's Traitor. So probably a lead role, if not the lead role. She was in ITV Playhouse, The Saint, what is this? The Distracted Preacher, Sentimental Education, UFO, obviously. Oh, she's in another episode of UFO too. Her character comes back, interestingly enough. Sunday Night Theater, Jane Eyre, Marked Personal. I don't know what that is, but she had a recurring role in it, seems like. Tanko, Connie, the Colbys, Dynasty, Cluedo, Sister Kate, Lucky Chances. Yeah, she has a very extensive career here. Sequest 2032, Beverly Hills 90210, No Bananas. I don't know what that is, but sounds like me after I go grocery shopping for a couple days. Just eat all the bananas very quickly, but not that anyone needed to know my banana eating habits, but whatever. Coronation Street, Trolleyed, Boomers. Oh God, like the meme, or the group of people. She's in something that's in post-production right now called Renegades, so that's kind of cool, I guess. And Rap Grandma.
Rap Grandma?
Yeah, one of those shows that you just know instantly what it's about just from the title.
Rap Grandma? Hell yeah. All right, well, we have an email to read and respond to from Steven. UFO Destruction. This was episode 19 in the order I watched. It didn't really do much for me. Early on, I thought, oh, it's just another submarine episode. I guess submarine means subpar. For the sub-smash episode of Trust Your Straker, the only possible custom title I imagine you might have used was I Guess He's Not a Furry. Still making my way through Zenith, a Star Trek Enterprise and Person of Interest podcast. Got through your epic debate on what you each consider science fiction. Weirdly, Dylan's definitions of soft sci-fi and hard sci-fi were the opposite of what I had imagined. Without looking up definitions, I thought soft sci-fi referred to stories that had sci-fi elements in them but didn't focus so much on them, while hard sci-fi would focus on such elements with a hell of a lot more technobabble. But looking up the terms, it looks like there are a couple different definitions for each. Your debate over whether the circumstance of Callie's exile was retconned was hilariously ironic, given that you guys have been pretty much on the same page and not been bothered by big retcons in Doctor Who, whether it be in The Day of the Doctor or Fugitive of the Jadoon and The Timeless Children, among other things. Whereas this Callie thing wasn't a huge deal to me. I certainly wouldn't have spent 13 whole minutes on it.
It still wasn't a retcon. 4 years later, it still wasn't a retcon. Prove me wrong.
Yeah, disagree. I do agree that Monopoly sucks. However, speaking as someone who despises both Monopoly and Fortnite, I have to say that Fortnite Monopoly is surprisingly fun. Wow. I played it a few times with my nephews a few months ago. Each game goes no more than half an hour. It really cuts out all the BS. I highly recommend playing it and doing a podcast about it. Sent from Yahoo Mail for iPhone.
Sent from Yahoo Mail for refrigerator.
Sent from Yahoo Mail for
Steven
potato.
And I always joke, not always, but we have a couple times joked about that, like sent from my washing machine type thing. Which, hey, that's the horror reality that we're slowly being acclimated to, right? Of every device is connected. You can't even open your fridge if it's not connected to Wi-Fi.
I'm pretty sure that you can get like the Twitter app for refrigerators now with the Samsung Smart Refrigerator.
Yeah, welcome to the world where companies know when you open your fridge and what you take out of it and can send you targeted ads for food at particular times of the day.
Well, that's all from emails. Thanks for reaching out again, Stephen. Always good to hear from you.
It's also all from the data collection farm known as social media, because we didn't get any comments, as usual.
We did get a response to a tweet I made from Jim of the Crinoid podcast. Jim shouted out Trust Your Doctor to someone who's looking for Doctor Who podcasts, and I said thank you, which, thank you, Jim. And someone said, there's not enough Space 1999 podcasts. And Jim said, well, Keon and Dylan are doing UFO and Inevitable right now. I'm sure Space 1999 is in the cards. And I responded with, it is. Just depends. How soon we get to it just depends on how many of the fans want Space 1999. And Jim said, oh, we want it.
Yeah, so thanks for listening to this, Jim. Thanks for sticking your neck out there for us. Not really sticking your neck out, but just, putting in a word for us. We actually did...
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
I wasn't thinking of this initially to read, but since we're talking about Blake 7 and Zenith, might as well read it anyway. We actually did get a comment here on Twitter from Jurgen. He was talking about he's talking about Big Finish and Blake 7, so I'll just read it. He goes, a pity Big Finish can't do any Blake 7 stories that feature Glynis Barber as my fave gunslinger Sulin. Otherwise, they could base their audio dramas on your amazingly clever outlines for scripts set after Series D. So, thanks for the kind word there, Jurgen. And we talked about this previously, when we were doing Zenith, when we were watching Blake 7. But Big Finish doesn't have the rights to do anything from Series D because they only are able to... they're only able to do Three Nations Blake 7, right, which is Series A through C. They dropped that Series D, and Chris Boucher became like the de facto guy. So they don't actually have the rights to... It's a stupid reason, a stupid bureaucratic reason, but it's the reason why they can't do anything with Sulin.
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to the way that, like, BBC and ITV worked then, where it wasn't the company that got the rights to the characters created for the TV show, it was the writers of the episode. And that was why, like, Pip and Jane could just go off and do whatever they wanted with all the characters they created from Doctor Who, and that's why we can have, like, the K9 spin-off, is because the K9 rights don't lie with the BBC, they lie with... in fact, it might have been Pip and Jane Baker, but... So it's the same thing with Blake 7, so, like, Big Finish has the rights to basically everything Terry Nation created, which was not Sulin.
Yeah,
so.
That actually, I mean, it's kind of dumb, and it kind of, creates these stupid scenarios where it's like Big Finish can't use Sulin, but it's like, that actually might be a good thing, right, for the actual writers to like, actually have...
Yeah, it's good for the creators, in a way.
Because you create a character, and you are the one who owns that character. Which is... It's also weird in a way, too, where it's like... Terry Nation... Well, it's like Terry... they can do... Big Finish has the rights to Terry Nation's characters, but it's like... Terry Nation, like, for example, owns Villa. Terry Nation owns... Terry Nation's not alive anymore, but, like... he had the rights to Avon. And especially, we talk about this a lot, but it's like TV characters are not created by one person. They're created by the writers, obviously, first of all, like they ideate everything, but how they're portrayed on screen is a combination of the writers writing, but it's a combination of the actors' acting ability, it's a combination of costume designers and makeup artists and probably a bunch of other people that I'm not even thinking of. Directors,
producers.
Yeah. So it's just
executives.
Yeah, so it's just,
when they air the show.
Yeah.
Looking at you, Firefly. But anyway.
Well, yeah, it's a weird thing. I don't know. It's like, what if Paul Darrow came out and was like,
there is an element
Avon.
of executives,
Of what?
Yeah, that's not true.
Paul Darrow also died a couple of years ago, but wait, what did you say? There's also an element of what?
Well, I was going to say there is an element of executive scheduling because it's like, is it pre-watershed or post-watershed?
Mm-hmm.
That changes, that does change what you can show on TV, which affects the episodes.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that was just my point there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a point worth making too.
So, but yeah, I mean, I can't believe we're going down this rabbit hole, but it is interesting then that, you just made this point that there are so many people who make TV shows that there are so many people who influence characters, but the ones who get the rights to the characters are the people who wrote the episode, even if they wrote the episode and then just like never had any further involvement with making that episode at all.
Mm-hmm. I think it's probably a combination of things. Just off the top of my head, I don't know for sure, but it's like the writer creates the character first, right? They're the first person who is in that process, right? Right, get it? So, also, I don't want to say this with like utmost certainty, but like Britain has a strong culture of valuing writers, especially TV writer. Like TV writers more so than TV writers get valued here. It's like how many British shows, especially older ones, like they'll just put the title of the episode and then just go like by, you know, Chris Boucher or someone like that. And, like, that's the first person you see. That's, like, the main... They even do it now with Doctor Who, where it's, like, you literally just see at the beginning of the episode by Chris Chibnall. Or by whoever. Mm-hmm. So that's really the person they're putting, like, in the spotlight here.
You compare that to an American show, you know, go watch, I don't know, NCIS or Elementary or... And, you know, obviously not streaming shows, but like we're talking cable television here. Oh, God, why did I enunciate television so weird? You know, go look at cable television in America, and it's very, very rare that you'll see the writer's name in any prominent fashion at the beginning of the episode. It's in fact now very rare that you can find the title of the episode in sort of the title sequence in American television. It's almost not prevalent anymore. It was in the older days, it was more prevalent. You know, things like Star Trek that had like a very overblown opening. You know, those were the kind of shows that included the writers in the titles of the episode, but most American television doesn't prominently feature the writers of each episode or the show in the beginning of each episode. I guess that's this season's version of what's sci-fi and what's not. Also, yeah, Steven, you made it to that discussion, but I hope you're ready for the fact that we talk about it for like 7 more episodes.
We talked about it for the rest of the podcast, not in that level of excruciating detail, but still.
Yeah, well, I suppose on that note, if you'd like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decadentvegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on destruction. You can find us on YouTube at Decadent Vegetable. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and anywhere you find podcasts at Inevitable, a classic sci-fi podcast. Please leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And next time, we're going to be watching The Square Triangle. Shadow and an alien find themselves in the midst of a murderous romantic triangle. Hopefully that's not a major spoiler for the episode. But until then, the end.